You've been told the housing market is stable, but it looks far from stable. If you look into the data, it's clear that the housing market is imploding, if not crashing, when you look at real inflation-adjusted data. And I've got none other than my good buddy John Flynn here with me to discuss the current state of this complete show housing market. So how are you doing, my friend?
Pretty good, Luke. Elbows up, Canada, Team Canada. We're gonna build a bunch of container homes here and backyard granny flats, and everything's gonna be fine here. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I was laughing my head off the day after the election or whatever. You did that video and you're packing up all your stuff. I was just crying at that.
That's what I wanted to do. That's really what I wanted to do, right? There's a lot of symbolic items in that video. You know, I had my drone and I had my gun because, you know, it had Florida on the box. Like, cause this is what's going to happen, right? They're going to just take everything away, you know, and I'm a legal gun owner. You know, we're like the safest people in the country. We're the most law-abiding people in the country. We don't go out and start fights because now you're deemed an unsafe person. When you go to renew, you have a criminal record. Like, we don't want the police at our house because of, you know, civil disobedience or anything like that. The gun owners in Canada are the most law-abiding, safest people, but they just want to take them away because it looks good on them, and they just think, obviously, too, that, you know, we're going to rise up one day and try to take the government down, like in the States. Well, that's what they have their right to bear arms for, right? To form a militia against the government. But this is what they don't want. So just like disarm the population. And I say, if you disarm the population, you should disarm the police too. Like, not the SWAT teams, obviously, but the police, like in England and Ireland. The beat cops, they don't carry guns. You don't need guns. Why do you need guns if your citizens don't have guns, right? You have your special task force. But anyway, so yeah, the government, it's not a good situation, in whether it's in where you're from or where you're sitting right now, or whether it's in Canada. Yeah, I can't believe the psyops, right? It was like that whole election was like a big psyop.
Even now, they're still flipping over different seats, and it's just like, why can't people wake up to what is happening? Like, when it's just a few votes. I mean, it is just obvious. If this was happening in the US, you can just imagine what would be happening.
We really are just controlled. I just put out a tweet this morning, or a post, I guess it's called, and it was, I said, in the US, they have the White House press secretary. In Canada, we have Rosemary Barton from the CBC. Like, this is like, that's our press secretary, like literally is like the state-funded media, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I guess people didn't want to get rid of that because at least they voted for. I just can't believe it, John. Like, after all the that we had with Trudeau, everything that happened, how like literally people were trampled over. Have you ever Googled yourself and just found way too much info? I did, and quite frankly, it freaked me out. Old addresses, old phone numbers, even info about your family. It can all be online and accessed by anybody. Last year alone, over 1.1 million Canadians were hit with identity fraud. In the US, 1 in 20 were hit with identity theft. That's millions of people who are affected by identity fraud and identity theft every single year. I know people it's happened to, and you probably do too, and that's exactly why I use Incogni. They contact over 230 data brokers for you to get your information removed in a fast and legal way. You can even use their dashboard to actually track the progress of them removing your data from different sites. And nowadays, data has become a powerful weapon, so take control of your data with Incogni. You can get 60% off your subscription by going to incogni.com/marketmania and using the code MarketMania. There's a link below in the pinned comment and in the description. Thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video. I just can't believe it, John. Like, after all the that we had with Trudeau, everything that happened, how like literally people were trampled over in the Freedom Convoy, how like all the censorship and everything like that, despite all of that, despite the fact people's living standards have been flushed down the toilet, people still voted for these clowns.
And it's amazing the momentum went from one side to the other so quickly, right?
Yeah.
And it was because of that psyop. Like, Mark Carney's going to save us. He's an economist. He knows how to run the country. Because that's what Trudeau really failed at, was the the math part, right? He's got a learning disability or something. So that was like, he was all about the ideology, and okay, that was great. He made all these great changes, so the CBC says. And then now, okay, now Mark Carney's going to come and finish off with the economy. So we had this perfect solution, is what we were told. If you look at what an economist is, a paid economist, I should say. An economist, is, you can look up the definition, someone who studies the economy and numbers and how people affect that, employment and all the rest of those things. But if you look at a paid economist is just a messenger for a company. And I'll give an example of like certain big real estate franchises in Canada, right? I'm not going to mention them, but you know who they are. They have their economists, and they come out every year and they say the same thing. Real estate prices are going to go up 6% this year, and the sales are going to increase. And actually, we heard the same thing this year. And what happened? Now in the last month, they're saying, whoa, the economy's going to crash, and real estate sales are going to go down, and prices are going to go down 4 or 5%. So, but it's all an economist is when they're working for a company is a paid messenger. Look at these numbers, create some numbers for us, cherry pick some numbers, and tell us that what we want to hear, and tell us what we can tell the public. So this is what, of course, Mark Carney is now. Carney is the guy. He's not going to be able to fix the economy. I actually feel bad for the guy. Actually, I would have felt bad for Pierre Poilievre if he had a one too. And he even said it. He says, I'm going to get the hangover. They had the party. I'm getting the hangover if he had a one. And Carney's getting the hangover. But as an economist, he's going to be able to put the right messaging out there to convince us all, or to convince certain people that watch CBC, that everything's great and the economy is doing fine. And he's probably going to make up some numbers about the houses he built too. I don't know how he's going to do that, but like 500,000 homes. There is no way. And do you know how long it's going to take to get to that? Like, it's going to take years to get to 500, even if it was possible. And that's the thing with whoever won, they're screwed either way, because you're inheriting a failing and a declining economy, and we're seeing it now. Look at the reports that have come out in just the last few days. There's these reports from the economists saying things like the GDP is going to fall, and 100,000 job losses and things like that. And so it's all just playing out the way it should, and they're just messengers at this point that are in a position to tell us what we want to hear.
Well, yeah. What do you think about like Mark Carney and that Vancouver mayor? I don't even know his name, but that clown saying, both of them saying essentially, we don't want home prices to go down. We want to protect home values.
Do you want house prices to go down in Canada?
I want house prices to be more affordable for Canadians. And let me explain that. It means a number of things. One, in the very short term.
I want to figure out where you are, because I didn't hear a yes or no there. We did hear a yes or no from Gregor Robertson, though. He said no. So where do you stand on that?
Well, first off, it's not a yes-no question. It's not a yes-no question.
It was for him, though.
Well, I'm answering the questions right now, if I can.
We got to make sure that people's assets are obviously protected.
Do you think home prices need to go down?
No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy.
Do you think the opposite will probably happen, as with most things?
Oh, yeah. Well, so you can be pretty much, there's probably like a 75 to 85% chance that it's not going to happen. They're not going to maintain. Like, the politicians, they can't just make these promises. And most of the promises they make don't come true. We're already seeing that with Carney, right? You see a lot of stuff out there. Are you glad you voted for him, or are you sad you voted for him now? But that Gregor guy, yeah. So like, it was just such a wild card to have this guy as the housing minister. He obviously is there to serve a purpose, and he's there to, again, give the messaging that Carney wants. Carney was asked that question about, do you want house prices to come down? And, he couldn't give a straight answer on it. For someone that's calculated and knows the numbers properly, he could not answer the question.
It's not a yes-no question.
It was for him, though.
Well, I'm answering the questions right now, if I can.
As a politician, no, you don't want house prices to come down, but you want to make housing affordable for the younger generation trying to get into the market. And it's you can't walk that line. It's just not possible. This is like mathematically impossible. So what Carney's hoping, and I talked about it in my video yesterday, Carney's just hoping time is going to heal. So like in 5 to 10 years from now, like young people's incomes will increase. He didn't say the number, but let's just call it 20%, and housing will relatively become more affordable for them without house prices coming down. This is what he wants, because he knows, well, it's just not good for the economy and everything. It's going to look bad when house prices come down. We're going to get into that deep recession. But this is what we need. And somebody was on one of those news panels yesterday on one of our Canadian broadcasts, and she worked for the Conservatives. I don't even know who she was. She's like, we need house prices to come down. Like, I said it. Like, yes, we do, right? And it was very simple. And most people in Canada would agree, whether they're boomers or parents or whoever, like for the sake of their kids and their grandkids, like, do you really want your kids spending $700,000-800,000 on a house? Like, no, you don't. Like it's compared to their income, it's just unsustainable. So, and I talked about this. So the average house price is just, it's 680, whatever, 700,000. And the average household income in Canada, I'm talking about the household income after tax. Now you have to be very specific. It's like probably still under 100 grand. So
yeah, you're
at like 7-to-1 ratio. We need to be 3.5 or less. Like 4 is too high. 4 is getting on the high side. So we need to go to 2.5 to 3.5. So incomes need to double or house prices need to come down significantly. What probably will happen is house prices will come down and slowly incomes will go up, and we will have a meeting of a happy medium somewhere.
One thing I was thinking about as well is, especially being back here in the UK as well, is what they did, and I think it could come in Canada as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And I think they actually tried a program similar to this under Trudeau, but basically it's become really popular with young people especially, and it's called this Help to Buy scheme, and it's a government scheme, so be warned. But basically what it is the government doesn't own any of your house. It's like a private company. So you could basically buy a house by buying a share, like let's say 25% of this. It has to be a new house. So you buy this new house, you're buying 25% share, and then BlackRock has 75% of the rest of it, and you have to rent that back. But there's a ton of trade-offs with that are now emerging that people didn't even know, and so many young people have done this, and it's fueled home building in the UK. Like, it has transformed the country in terms of home building. Like, they're building houses everywhere, and most of these houses are these Help to Buy houses. But the thing is, people don't actually own that home, and it's just creating like a further problem. And I feel like it's kicking the can down the road even more, because not only do they not own that asset, so they're never going to benefit off owning that home over a long period of time because they just own this 25% stake, but all these homes, because they're new homes, they're like these they're not container homes, but they are literally the size of a container. I mean, you know how everything is small in Europe, but it's like tiny homes essentially. Yeah. So you're getting all these tiny home places, and they're also trying to like social engineer these communities now, where you have to have like 40% or 30% of it that is low income housing. So they're mixing, like in an estate, in a like wealthy neighborhood, for instance, you've got like houses that are 500, 600,000 pounds, like nearly $1 million. And then you've got houses that are like people are paying 50 grand to get into with their share, and they take out a mortgage.
So I've seen how they create neighborhoods, right? And I've seen them in Niagara Falls, where I'm from. So what they do is they create the neighborhood, and they don't do it to the extremes, but generally speaking, what happens is they'll create the neighborhood with the nice houses, all the detached first, and then they'll have a small parcel of land or so left over that they say this is for future development. Once everybody buys those nice detached homes, then at the end they say, okay, we're putting townhouses here, an apartment building, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? We don't want that in our neighborhood. And like, too bad, we're doing it. But it was all like planned. But it's I don't know if it happens the same way in the UK, where they kind of break that news after the people buy the 600,000 pound homes. But yeah, that's the way the world's going, right? And it just sounds like you'll own nothing and be happy. And the problem with everything nowadays is the young population and the youth, they have been tuned and brainwashed into thinking everything is just a subscription plan, right? Like everything, like my Apple whatever subscription plan, even software. Like I used to just buy like the software, and now it's like, well, you could just have it for $10 a month for the rest of your life. Like, no, how about I just spend the 300? Well, I don't want to spend the 300 right now because I want to go for dinner with my friends at wherever, right? At some fancy restaurant in Toronto where they told me it's cool to live. So this is the problem. And this is now what's happening with homes. But who's the beneficiaries of these? And it amazes me that all of these governments pushing this crap, this social agenda, are liberal governments, and they're the ones that are supposed to be against big corporations. And it's the big corporations that are going to own all the homes and own the software and own all these things that you rent. So my advice to anyone, and I've been saying a lot lately, is, okay, you want to buy a home now, whatever, they've come down a little bit. Buy a home, but buy it so that with a plan to pay it off as quick as you possibly can. Don't buy a home on a payment plan like I got it now. My mortgage is $2,300 a month. Like it's better than it was at $3,300 per month. No, buy a home with the plan to pay it off as quick as you can. If you don't have a plan to pay it off, then don't buy it. Just go rent a home. Like what's the point of buying a home? You have to come up with this money down. You have to come up with maintenance costs and improvements in the property. Just rent a home because you're never going to own it anyway. And that seems like what's happening in the UK right now. Now, I do actually have a quote here, and I put this on my folders. So I have this quote, and this is the quote I've had forever. And I was just looking around. I was like, give me a quote. I need something to put on this folder. This is our offer presentation folder, right? So there it is. You know, when we put an offer or we do a listing presentation or something. But it says, and I'll flip it around. And this was from Franklin D. Roosevelt, this quote. And it's about real estate, obviously. This is my real estate folder. And this holds true. This is like the Bible, right? Right here. Real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense. And that's key. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care. It's about the safest investment in the world. And so it is the safest investment in the world and one of the best investments you can make. But there's some caveats to that, which people forget about. And there it is, paid for in full and managed with care, right? There it is, somewhere over there. Yeah.
That is so true, because the thing is, everything now is like buy now, pay later, or subscriptions. Even going to the movies now, they have like a subscription service. But it is becoming that way that you're just going to rent everything. But I don't see how the economy is really going to function. I mean, we're already seeing like young people, they really don't give a shit anymore. Like they don't have the enthusiasm to go to work that other generations like you or I might have. The work ethic just isn't there, because they're like, why should I bother? Because either I'm just waiting until I inherit something of value, or I'm just going to basically not bother because I'm not going to get anything anyway, even if I try. And I feel like we live in this economy now as well, where people do well. It's almost like shame on you for doing well.
Yeah, I know the young people, you know what, I kind of give them credit at the same time, because I grew up like, save your money, you might need it for a rainy day, you know, like you got to have a nest egg for the tough times. The young people are just like, I'm going to New York to go for dinner with my friends. Like, I'm like, what are you, crazy? Like, costs so much money. Like, why? They have nothing to save for. And again, back to the housing thing, like if you can't pay off a house, why buy it? If I'm going to buy a rental property, which I don't own rental properties, but if I was going to buy one, I'm putting 50% down. I'm not putting 20% down and hoping I break even or whatever, right? Like you need to be like, stop leveraging the hell. There's times to leverage, and there's times to be responsible. But we've just, again, adopted this attitude where everyone's just going to leverage themselves, borrow whatever they can, put everything on a payment plan. And I think that when you just talked about the economy, I think that the problem is, if the only way forward at this point without a big economic downturn or crash is by doing this, is by saying, okay, we know you can't afford to buy this or that now, just give me $5 or $10, right? Like, this is the only way to keep it going, is just by, this is all that's left, is like little bits. Like, people don't have massive amounts to put into this. Now they're like, well, my parents are going to give me $100,000 to buy a house. Okay. So your parents are literally giving you $100,000, and you're going to have a bigger mortgage than anyone's ever had in the history of, real estate ownership. So we're at this point where, yeah, it is this Ponzi. It is just like, we just need more people to keep putting money into this thing. So if everybody stopped, whether it's buying or doing these rental plans or these payment plans, it would collapse. But that's the only thing holding it together at this point, is payment plans. Like, what's next? Like, they're going to like hook you up to a machine like the Matrix and just start sucking the life out of you. Like, that's what's next. Like, it's probably coming too.
Well, yeah. And I think I've actually thought, like, and it's kind of scary when you look at what happened before the Great Depression. Everything was like payment plans and buy now, pay later. And it only goes to a certain point where you've got to have a reset. And the thing is, with the housing market, especially in Canada, when you look at the mania and the run up that happened, and how, if you just look at mortgage debt, I think the stats are something like, at the peak, it had grown 360% from 2004. Well, people's incomes, they hadn't grown 360%. I think when I did the numbers, it was something like 30 or 40% around that number. So like eventually you get to a point where those payments exceed the people's income, because you can like leverage, like if you can leverage everything in your life, then to a certain degree, you can actually increase, I guess not your income, but it's just what you can consume. But then it gets to a certain point where the runway runs out. And I think that's where we really hit with real estate. And now you've also got the fact that sentiments changed around immigration. And I think that is putting a lot of downward pressure because of the rentals. Like the immigrants, they're still coming, and they're still going to be coming in like a decent amount of numbers, because you've got this liberal government, Agenda 2030, all the rest of this. They want high immigration just to bring in more voters. It's working great for them, but they can't do it with the numbers in the past. So it's going to be less, but you've had investment into real estate for like as if there's going to be millions of people coming to Canada for the next like 10 years. And you know this, but we've listened to all these brokers and realtors for years saying that, oh, immigration is just going to keep this thing going forever. But basically, I guess what I'm saying in this long-winded kind of rant, at the end of the day, everything comes to an end.
And with immigration, it's a good point. A lot of people think like prices will never go down and they will only go up because we're not building enough homes because we have all this, population increase from immigration. But what people don't realize is the immigrants are not moving into a single family home. They're moving into a basement. So we don't even need any new homes because the density is just increasing in the existing infrastructure and housing. And the infrastructure, I always laugh. So like our infrastructure, like the highways in Canada are like crazy. Like we've had, a lot of the immigrants are driving, obviously. So like we're a driving country, and we have like these roads and they can't even repair them, and they're not making any more roads. It's like so packed, the highways. It's insane. Like if somebody crosses the street in Little Old Niagara Falls, where I'm from, up at the intersection near me, like traffic is like backed up for a kilometer because we didn't even make the infrastructure where people are supposed to cross the street. Like at a crosswalk, like it was like the odd person would cross there like a few times. Now you have massive amounts of like students crossing at these intersections, and it just wasn't made. It wasn't made for the bus to stop there and for all these things. So like we're seeing this, and this is just that kind of infrastructure. Then you have the grocery stores, like they can only handle so much. And of course, what does the government not do, or the municipalities? They don't approve expansion to create new neighborhoods. So you're creating more density within existing neighborhoods, and this is so we're going to have that problem now. And, they say build up, not out, but that's fine. But you can't even handle the people we have right now. I just, hopefully the sewers don't start backing up soon, because that's going to get real messy.
Well, that has actually happened like in a few places here in the UK. It's all like old infrastructure that was never upgraded. The roads are never upgraded, so everything is just like a complete nightmare. It's like the whole of England, even like the countryside now, is all like a big city in Canada. Like even though you're driving across the countryside, there's just little road infrastructure. Like England is the extreme of Canada actually, which is just like elites owning all the land. Like when you look at who owns all the land in Canada, like I looked it up just the other day. I think 90% of the land is owned by like the top 10%. So all private land, only 10% of it is owned by the 90% of the population, which is just insane. And it's even worse here because you've got, once again, the monarchy, which still influences Canada. Like it's such a thing that nobody really wants to talk about, but maybe we should just talk about it now, is the fact that like they prorogued Parliament. That was a decision that was taken by the monarchy, and now the king is going there. The king of England or the Commonwealth or whatever is going there to open up Parliament, which I don't know. What do you think of the monarchy?
Well, again, I'm not an expert on this situation or on these matters, but the monarchy, from what I know, I don't like the monarchy. I'm Irish, so
yeah,
that's what I was growing up. I grew up with that in mind. We used to call her Lizzie. But the monarch is not supposed to have any political influence in Canada. We are our own country. They are just a figurehead. So when they're coming to open our parliament and do the speech from the throne, that's like they're directly involved in our parliament. They're not even involved in the British and the UK parliament. Like the king doesn't go in and give speeches in the UK parliament. That's
No.
It's a separate figurehead. It's a separate entity. So like coming here again, this is a political move by Carney, and he wants to show how well known he is and what a world figure he is. And this is the first thing he did when he became the interim prime minister. He flew off and met world leaders, and then when he got reelected legitimately, well, I don't know if you call it legitimately when you have the
Yeah.
state-funded media creating the propaganda for him, but first thing he did again was fly off and meet all these world leaders and meet Zelensky and everyone else. So he just wants to flex his muscles. And of course, you do have that symbolic gesture or power move to the U.S. to show how sovereign Canada is because of Donald Trump with the 51st state thing. And of course, now you have Carney that has to answer, like, he was like, we're done, our relationship's over. And, now he's like, well, he was down there talking with him and they're talking about security contracts together and all these things. So it's like, we're never going to be done with the states. Like, I don't care who it is. So we probably will never be the 51st state either in our lifetime anyway, but we're not done with the states. Like, I'm driving over there today to pick something up. Like,
Yeah.
it's just craziness. So this is all just political posturing. But what gets me with this government right now and the past government and too many governments around the world is they're not focused. They're clearly not focused on their own country. Like, they're focused on this global presence. I'm not even going to call it an agenda. That's a separate thing altogether. But it's like this global presence that we're living in this global community. And this is why they opened all the borders and all the countries at the same time. They just want everyone just mixed in like this big global community where, no, like, we have our own identity. We're like sports teams, right? Like, we want our own identity and we want our own economy, but they're trying to create something different that we're all like, Canada's going to be like the UK where we're going to have more dense housing, government programs for whatever. Like, it's insane. It has become so convoluted, this whole sovereignty and global thing. Like, we need to focus on Canada. I do agree, whether it's, I don't know who had the slogan Canada first, but this is what you need. We're Canadian. We don't want our prime minister. If I was like the leader of the country, I would say, all right, I'm not meeting any of you leaders, and you want to come here for some G7 thing, that's fine, but like, I'm focusing on Canada. Stop the war, please, and I'll say what I have to say about that, but like, I'm focusing on Canada. Like, let's start building the homes here. Let's do what we need to do. Let's open the pipelines. Let's do whatever we need to do. No, first thing our prime minister does, fly off to another country and start virtue signaling to the world, just like the last one. And of course, he gets on the plane with his wife and all his friends, and like, they're just like living like rap stars, rappers, like flying around the world. Like, I'm surprised they're not like making TikToks on, well, they used to, I think, with Trudeau, like on the plane, like
Jag me.
Yeah, like you might have like this is why they're doing it. They're doing it because they feel like elites. Like, they'll probably take a flight to space next, just because it's like the thing to do. Like, it's like the Virgin Atlantic guy or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's just like so sad that when you really look at how like just out to lunch people are when it comes to government propaganda, like, how many times are people going to be fooled in Canada by government propaganda? I don't care if it's Danielle Smith saying move to Alberta because the grass is greener, or it's Mark Carney saying dump the US. Like, it's all political propaganda, but when it goes with what people want to feel like, they seem to just like, oh yeah, this is great, this is just fantastic, and they just believe it. I don't know, like, we have such a lack of critical thinking, and I think really that is like why Canada is collapsing so much at heart.
Yeah, you know what? If they really want to show me that they care, like the Carney, the Liberal government, because these are the net zero guys, like, literally ditch those SUVs and stop flying around. Okay, I understand you have to fly and there's, stuff you have to do, but like, ditch them. Like, why are they still like, it's just so hypocritical. Like, that's the number one thing. You're telling us net zero, but you're driving around with like 20 SUVs, all V8s, like, and like get some electric cars. You can get bulletproof ones or whatever. Like
Yeah.
do it. Like, stop freaking being a hypocrite. Like, it's craziness. The insanity and the greed. It's like, well, no, do what I say, not what I do, right? So that's like me saying, well, I'm a realtor, and because, I'm so important with, providing my services to people, I need to drive around in a Hummer, with a gas guzzling Hummer. Like, well, that's because I'm so important. Like, this is what they're literally saying. I'm just so important that, this is, I'm so different than you. Like, no, you're not different. You're just a human being that, bamboozled their way into the position, because that's what they did. They did play those cards right, and they really did run a good campaign on how they manipulated. Now, I don't think it was fair how they did it. They really used the system for themselves as opposed to for Canadians, of course, by, like as you said, proroguing Parliament. Like, we haven't had a Parliament, and they're going to open for a few weeks, no budget, and this is not in Canadians' best interest. What just happened? It was in the Liberal Party's best interest, but they'll say, well, it is in Canadians, because if we're not the government, then it's going to be these terrible people, right? No, this is not right. Like, you guys manipulated the system, and you won, and you're still manipulating the system by having recounts and Canada Post putting the wrong return address or postal codes on the envelopes in Quebec, and then they're like, no, we can't count those. Too bad. It's like, and I guess they're taking them to court, right? The Bloc Québécois.
I saw that.
Yeah, like, and like this is like ridiculous. Like, and of course, Canada Post, that's another situation. They're going on strike again tomorrow. Let me just I wanted to say one thing now that I'm thinking about it before I forget. So Canada Post, okay, I love my mail carrier, by the way. He's the greatest. He's so friendly, whatever, right? I do. I love the guy. Like, I always love all the mail carriers. The Canada Post is just the perfect overall reflection of the Canadian government. And you can actually take a snapshot and say, here it is. Look how much money they're losing. And you can go back, and they weren't always losing money. And they are losing so much money, and they still need more people, and they need more benefits, and they're losing, like, they're like bankrupt. Like, if it was a corporation, they would have been bankrupt a long time ago. But this is what Canada is in the government. It's just this overinflated group of people that's losing a bunch of money, and they still want more, and they expect the Canadian people to bail them out. And they're providing little to no service. Like, Canada Post, the reason they're losing money is they don't provide a lot of service. They literally deliver the flyers for the grocery stores now, like, most of the time, right? It's unaddressed ad mail. That's the revenue source. I know I used to do the unaddressed ad mail. I used to send it out, and they didn't even do that right half the time. They'd send it to the wrong neighborhoods.
Thanks to Incogni for sponsoring today's video. If you're interested in their subscription to take control of your data, you can get 60% off using my link below. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.